Hello, hello, my style icons. Welcome back to Life in Style with Brianna Cantore. That is me, and this is your mental vacation, the best destination to be besides maybe Comporta. I'm going to Comporta, which is this lovely little beach town in Portugal that I've never been to, pretty soon with my family, and I am so excited. I am so ready for a beautiful European vacation with my family. So if you've never heard of Comporta, check it out. I found it by doing research. They say it's like the Hamptons of Portugal. So obviously, I'm so excited for that. And we have a great episode today. Today, I'm going to be talking about my alcohol free life, my journey of how I got to that point of eliminating alcohol from my life, and some of the negative aspects of drinking alcohol, just so we're all aware of those things, what we're getting into if you do drink, and how I'm feeling today now that I'm almost 2 years alcohol free. So let's get into it. Life and style. When I named the podcast this, what does that actually mean? Life and style with Brianna Cantor. Well, I'm going to be talking about all things that pertain to lifestyle, right? So, from fashion to beauty to health and well being and things that are trending. What's the latest buzz? And something that is trending is this sober, curious movement, which I'm so grateful for because it has made my journey of eliminating alcohol from my life that much easier than, say, if I were doing this 10 years ago when people weren't really talking about this. So I'm very thankful for the sober curious movement, and honestly even for Gen Z for being so health conscious and putting their health first. I mean, they're honestly incredible for doing so because at their age I was binge drinking and partying. So with that being said, let's get into my alcohol free life. So, I've talked about this a little bit, but in the early days of my childhood, I started experiencing anxiety and depression. I just was a very sensitive kid, and to this day, I feel things so immensely, like in my core, in my gut, and I hold on to things and I feel emotions like a roller coaster, like high highs and then low lows and happiness in an extreme form. And I think it has a lot to do with my creativity and just my empathy. And as a kid, I didn't fully understand myself and didn't actually even know what I was going through was anxiety and depression until later in life and doing therapy and realizing that, becoming more educated and more in tune with what I was going through. So, I've always been sensitive. My system has always been extremely highly sensitive. And so then we get to late high school, early college, when, like most of us, maybe not nowadays because the younger generations are drinking less, but most of us go on to party and explore getting more freedom. And I went to school in Manhattan, but then it was also close to my hometown. So I would party in the city, party in my hometown, and had a fake ID, all of that. I had a great time going out, and I love music, and dancing with my friends, putting on what I thought was a great outfit. But looking back, some questionable decisions there, meeting different guys and having fun there. Had lots of fun. And honestly, I think the alcohol helped me talk to guys because I'd always been super self-conscious and never thought I was like pretty enough or anything like that. Thought I had the prettiest friends, and when I came to myself, I just never saw myself as beautiful, I guess. That took me a long time in therapy to get through. I've made it on the other side of that. But so that's really when the drinking, started in college. And in my head, it was like, well, I'm going to school and working all week. So binge drinking on the weekend isn't a problem, right? Like it's balance. I'm balancing it out. And that just is not the case, you guys. There is no balancing out having multiple drinks in a night with a week full of, healthy decisions. That's just not what balance is. So you live and you learn. And when I was about 21, 22, that's when I started seeing a doctor about my gut and my inflammation and finding out about my celiac, my gluten allergy, and going through that process, which was a very long and frustrating process because first I started going to, conventional doctors that couldn't really identify what the exact issue was and wanted to prescribe me all these different medications. And then I ended up going to a more integral doctor who takes a more holistic approach to the body and healing. And she's the one who really performed the right tests and identified where my issues were. So I started feeling better once I got that diagnosis and cut gluten and dairy out of my diet and started to see some of that inflammation come down. I had always been petite and had a very toned, athletic body. And when I was in the height of this, I was very bloated. I almost looked pregnant. I didn't recognize myself. My face was so puffy. I look back at pictures and I'm like, who is that person? And so I started to see those signs of inflammation come down. But I was still, drinking on the weekends, some nights more than others. And the thing about alcohol, in my experience with it, that I wish I realized sooner is that I never had a consistent experience drinking alcohol. So for example, I could have a few glasses of wine one night and be totally fine. And then if it was another night and I did those same things, I could be blacked out or vomiting or just so ill, or even like would get hives and a red neck. I wish that I realized sooner that that was my body telling me, we don't want this. You're already inflamed. We can't break this down. Please stop doing it. But instead, I almost continued to self sabotage. I wasn't listening to the signs my body was giving me. And I paid the price for that because there were some nights where I just let alcohol get the best of me and I didn't act as my true best self, you know? So I'm glad I learned. I'm glad I finally woke up. And that process of waking up started to happen actually in January of 2020. So this is right before the pandemic fully hit, before we were in isolation. I decided to do dry January for the first time ever. If you had asked me to do it prior to that, I would have been like, no fucking way. Like, I love going out for a drink with my friends. But I don't know. It was like a light bulb went off in my brain, and I was like, I'm going to do this. And what I experienced is not at all what I thought I would experience. It was this total wake up moment. I felt so good and so clear in the mind and so like healthy. Like I didn't realize I was still having underlying feelings of pain and inflammation. And I just felt like a new person. And it felt so good. But then January ended and I went back to drinking alcohol. Not as heavy as I once was, but did proceed to have a drink or two on the weekend. And then COVID hit and we went into isolation in March of 2020. And I was in that isolation with my mom in her condo, her townhome in New Jersey. And she doesn't drink alcohol. And so having a glass of wine alone was like not really fun, to be honest. So, knowing that out of the many horrible things it does, alcohol weakens your immune system, I decided, you know what? I'm just not going to drink anymore for the meantime because it's, I'm not being social and I don't have someone to drink with. So, I'm going to do other things instead. So, I started painting a lot, and that was a magical experience because I hadn't painted in so long, like I think since high school, honestly. And at that point, I was like 28 ish, 29, 28, 29. And I created these beautiful, fun pieces of pop art inspired by Lichtenstein. I always have a tough time saying his name, but an iconic pop art artist, and that felt great. And so over the next few years, I I went on a healing journey because I knew I still had a lot of work to do and that COVID isolation brought up a lot of childhood trauma that I had suppressed and I didn't fully heal from. And I definitely hit a rock bottom, you know. But I told myself if I just hang in there and put in the work, I'm going to achieve that beautiful life that I always envisioned myself having. And so I did. And I started going to health conferences and reading lots of books and instilling a lot of wellness practices in my life. And I also was taking long periods of breaks of not drinking alcohol. And then when I would drink, it would be one or two drinks. It wouldn't be like before. And then once we hit October of 2024, that's when I had my last alcoholic drink. So I went to the Eras Tour here in Miami with my sister and two of my friends. And I had one or two wine spritzers, like in the can. They're very light. And I actually was thinking about even like not drinking at all, but I said, oh, I'm at this concert, it's a habit, right? Had these drinks and I woke up and I like just had a stomach ache and I did not feel well at all. I didn't have like the post drinking anxiety that I used to get when I would binge drink, but it wasn't sitting right in my stomach. And it was a very natural, easy decision. I was just like, you know what? I just did that because it was there, but I actually didn't want to have that drink. So I'm done. I'm breaking up with alcohol. Our time together has been completed. It's done. It's over with. I'm breaking up with that habit for good. And I can honestly tell you I will never go back. That is now a vow and a promise I had made to myself in this lifetime. I will not drink alcohol anymore ever because it doesn't make me feel good and my body does not like it at all. And I only want to participate in things that make me feel good, and acts of self love are really important to me, especially going so many years not loving myself. So from that day forward, I really made a promise to only do things out of self love. And I know that drinking alcohol is an act of self hate for me because of how badly my body reacts to it and my mind. And I want to live free of anxiety and free of depression and heal naturally. And I've been able to do so by making these sacrifices, one of them being eliminating alcohol. So, if you are experiencing anxiety and or depression, please, I urge you, try this. Try cutting alcohol out of your life. It will change your life for the better. And there are no benefits to drinking alcohol. So it's not like you're missing out on something when you cut it out. I know there's a learning curve that comes to socializing without alcohol. That was probably the hardest part for me, transparently, because cutting it out came very naturally and it was a very slow process from 2020 to 2024. So it wasn't like something I did overnight. That was a 4-year process, over 4 years. And that's why it was so easy to finally say, no, no, no more, never again, because I took the time that I needed to naturally do it. But socializing without alcohol was a learning curve. And it's awkward at first. You go out and there's music and everyone's drinking, and you're like, what do I drink? Okay. Everyone has a drink in their hand. What do I drink? So I started with just getting water or a soda water with lemon and doing that. And I don't really do mocktails because they're very sugary and my body doesn't love like sugars, like unnatural sugars in general. So that wouldn't make me feel great either. So started with, doing the water thing. And now there's these functional beverages that some bars have, which are great. But honestly, having a drink just became less and less important. I'm saying even just like a water in my hand because as I started to get more comfortable with my alcohol-free lifestyle, it just became back of mind. Like it wasn't something I was noticing anymore. And instead, I was showing up and really being more observant, listening to the music more and hearing new songs. And man, I just love to dance. I love to dance and party and listen to music. And let me tell you, that is so much better when you're alcohol free. So much better because you have more energy, you look better, you're alert, and you just feel like on top of the world. I don't know, when you really tap into that experience, it just, you feel a happiness that you don't feel when you're in that experience and you're drinking or drunk. And now that less and less people are drinking, it's not it's not weird. It's really not. And I don't mind saying to people, "Oh, actually, I don't drink, but thank you." They offer me a drink or a shot or something. And I've never had a weird reaction. I wouldn't care if I did, but nevertheless, I haven't had a weird reaction. And it's been a totally natural and honestly easy process. So now, today, I have barely any detectable inflammation in my body, which is like a miracle because if you would have seen my levels 10 years ago, oh my God, I had insane inflammation levels all throughout my body from the gluten, from drinking, from all of those things I was putting in my body that my body did not want. And so when I saw recent blood tests that barely could detect any inflammation, like I got so emotional because it's been such a journey to get to this point, and I did it naturally and through diet and exercise and mindful living and acts of self-love, and it feels so good to be here. My skin is clearer. I still get some puffiness, but way less puffy than when I was drinking alcohol, like world of a difference. And I think that puffiness comes from my body has just a hard time in general detoxing. So I really rely on lymphatic drainage movements. And I really feel, and this is not bullshit, I truly believe in my heart that I am aging beautifully and I look better now than I did when I was drinking alcohol. My eyes are whiter, the whites of my eyes, they're more crisp, and my skin glows differently and it feels different. My body feels and looks different, and I'm proud of my aging process, and I know that has a lot to do with eliminating alcohol because I can see it in the photos from when I was drinking to now, and it's a world of a difference. I don't experience hangovers, obviously, and that is a reason in itself to stop drinking because hangovers are horrible. You can spend a whole day in bed being hungover when it's like, we have this beautiful life to live. Like, I don't want to spend a whole day in bed being sick, eating junk food because I was drinking the whole day prior when I could have been doing those same activities out and about in the city, going to bars, going to a game without alcohol, and then wake up the next day and do more fun things. But when you add alcohol into the mix and then you get hungover, it's like you ruin days just like being in bed sick. No, I don't experience that. And knock on wood, but I am very healthy. I haven't been on any antibiotics in, I don't know, I want to say since like 2019, like since right before I started this alcohol-free journey, and am feeling better than ever. Thank God. Thank you, God. Health is something we all need to prioritize. And so, whatever you need to do or change in your life to really prioritize your health, you need to do it. Take this as a sign. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm judging you if you do drink. Live your life. You know what's good for you and what's not. And all of what I'm about to say about the downside of alcohol, it's just to inform us all what you're getting into when you put that substance into your body. But overall, you make the decision for you. I know plenty of people I love, including my sister, who love to have a drink or two on the weekends. Great. I'm not judging you at all. I'm the last person that should judge you. I just want us all to know what are the downsides of alcohol. So if you are somebody that maybe needs to stop, maybe needs to take a break from alcohol, these things might get you to do it. So let's read them. Alcohol damages the liver. And actually, something I was surprised to read is that moderate drinking can cause fatty liver. So you don't need to be a full blown alcoholic drinking every day to experience fatty liver from alcohol. Moderate drinking can cause fatty liver. Drinking alcohol raises our blood pressure. It's not great for our heart. So if you have any underlying heart conditions, quitting alcohol can be something great for your heart health. It disrupts sleep quality. Oh my God, I am at the point in my life where I am totally embracing and fully getting the sleep that I need. I love my sleep. Sleep is when your body heals. Sleep is when your nervous system rests. A lot of good, important things happen when we sleep. So it's important to get good quality sleep. And when you drink, it does disrupt your sleep quality. It definitely did for me. After a night of drinking, I could not go to sleep. Alcohol contributes to anxiety, depression, and mood swings. I experienced that as well. Oh my God, the post drinking anxiety was so real for me. I would feel so unsettled and like my heart would beat really fast, and mentally I did not feel well at all after drinking. It accelerates brain aging and weakens the immune system. So, if you are someone that drinks consistently and you're always getting sick, just note that alcohol does weaken your immune system. So, maybe you need to take a break and build up a stronger immune system before you start drinking again, if at all. It increases inflammation in the body. I experienced this myself, and inflammation leads to disease. Very simple. It does. And my doctor was very concerned when I came in as someone in my low 20s and I had this high levels of inflammation all throughout my body. She was like, we need to make these changes because this can lead to very bad things that I don't want to say out loud, but you know what I'm referencing. So it's simple. Inflammation leads to diseases. We need to get rid of the inflammation in our bodies. And you don't want to be the cause, of inflammation in your body. It can lower testosterone in men and affect the hormone balance of both men and women. So if you're trying to conceive and things aren't going smoothly, you may want to think about eliminating alcohol during that process because it may be contributing to some of those issues you may be having. And I think just even if you're not having issues and you want to start the process of having a baby, it's probably just safer to eliminate alcohol for that time being. It can make acne, rosacea, and eczema worse. And alcohol is categorized as a group 1 carcinogen. So that means that it can contribute potentially to causing cancer because it is a group 1 carcinogen. Scary things. And like I said, I wasn't reading those facts talking about those negative effects of alcohol to judge you in any way for drinking alcohol. I want us all to live our most stylish lives, right? But I do want to be someone that brings those things up because in my heart, in my soul, there's just something telling me I believe it's a higher power, God, the universe telling me to be one of those people that speaks about their alcohol-free life in hopes that it helps someone. I don't know. I just feel guided to talk about it. If I help one person on their journey with alcohol, without alcohol, then it makes it all worth it. So that's why I felt that it was important to talk about some of the scary parts of alcohol in case that's what you needed to hear to make the decision of eliminating it. That could potentially change your whole world, change your whole life for the better. And like I said, we as people living alcohol free are not alone in this. The sober the sober curious movement is only rising. The wellness movement, community, wellness as a business, it's only increasing. That's why all companies are wanting to make supplements and different exercise methods are coming out and all these activewear brands because that is an area of growth because of how many people are now living very mindful, very healthy lives. Gen Z is drinking way less than millennials, and US adults today, age 35 and under, are drinking about 10% less than US adults age 35 under from 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, it was reported that about 72% of US adults age 35 and under were drinking alcohol. And now, today, those numbers are somewhere around 62%. However, there's a lot of different pockets and different numbers of information coming out. A recent polling found that only about 50% of Americans aged 35 and under drink. So it's somewhere between 62% and 50% of American adults aged 35 and under are drinking, which is drastically lower than the 72% it once was. And Gen Z, when they do drink, it is reported that they are way less likely to binge drink. So they're just overall experiencing a way more mindful and healthy relationship with alcohol, which I really commend them for. Great job. So, thank you for listening to my journey of becoming alcohol free. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me a DM or comment on this episode. I would love to hear your story. And just know that there are a bunch of online free resources available as well if you're having trouble with alcohol. And I'll look some up as well and link them in the show notes. So that way, those resources are easily accessible to you. And I wish you all the luck on your journey with just health in general. And with that being said, my outfit of the day, this dress I've had for a very long time. It's beautiful. It's by a designer named Drav Kapoor. And if I mispronounce that, I am so sorry. If I can't find this exact dress, I will link a similar dress by the same designer because the designs are gorgeous. And I want to close every episode with a positive affirmation. Today's affirmation is I am deserving of love and I allow love to flow into my life. I'll say it again slowly so that way we can say it all together. I am deserving of love and I allow love to flow into my life. And with that being said, this episode is in support of Feed the Children organization, a leading anti hunger nonprofit I am a donor of. They are amazing. Please go check them out. Thank you. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.